Hello and welcome to the video. In this one I will be following up on a suggestion from a comment I had on my channel about looking specifically at cars that I liked and cars that I disliked over the decades. I do occasionally look at different cars, of course, but I thought specifically I would pick ones that I liked the look of. I know it's a bit superficial just to go by what they look like, but we all have our favourite Formula One cars and the ones that we just hate to look at as well. So I thought that's what I would do in this video, and I thought I would start off on a positive note by picking one of my favourite cars to see on the track, and then have a little chat about its history, the drivers, that sort of thing, how the year went. So basically the car is the 1997 McLaren MP4/12 McLaren Mercedes engine. Make sure that's in focus. This was a beautiful car. I loved it. Driven by, let's put their names here, Mika, Hakkinen and David Coulthard. David Coulthard had entered Formula One in 1994 when he took over after Ayrton Senna's fatal accident at Imola. He was the Williams test driver at the time, and he took over the race seat. I think he moved to McLaren, I think in 96, and stayed there for about 8 years or something. He was at McLaren for a very long time, moving there in 96, I think. Mika Hakkinen, he started his Formula One career earlier in 1991 with Lotus, with Johnny Herbert as his teammate. But it was Lotus on its last legs, basically. They were right at the back of the field, basically. So nothing like Lotus of old. But Mika Hakkinen shone straight away right from his first race in Phoenix, the US Grand Prix at Phoenix in 1991, first race of the season, and he shone straight away. David Coulthard was seen as being good, but Mika Hakkinen was seen as being a potential championship winner. At this stage, in 1997, Coulthard had won a few Grand Prix in the Williams. In 95, did he win one in 94? Did he win maybe the Portuguese Grand Prix in 90? No, I think his first win was in 95. But anyway, he was a race winner. Hakkinen was not yet a race winner. Now you might think, why not look at the 98 McLaren, the MP4/12? It's because of the tyres, basically. In 1998, they brought in grooved tyres, grooved slicks, and also narrower tyres. They were a lot narrower, and the track was reduced between the wheels as well, making the whole car look narrow. Now, they did all of this to reduce the amount of tyre on the ground, certainly the grooved tyres, and reducing the width of the tyre was designed to slow the car down by having less contact with the tarmac. But it made the tyres very ugly to look at, and it's debatable whether it really did what it was supposed to do anyway in slowing down the cars. But those grooved slicks existed for about 10 years or so, I think, I seem to remember. But anyway, that's why I haven't picked the championship dominating 98 McLaren, because for me it's the monocoque. The chassis looks very similar to the 97 MP4/12, but the tyres totally different. This was also the first time that we had the livery, a big change in sponsor at McLaren. I won't name the sponsors, but from 1974 up to 1996, McLaren had the same sponsor with the same red and white colouring, as I'm sure you all know. And that was replaced with the very nice looking silver, red, black, grey livery of their new sponsor, and it looked very striking, very nice, very attractive. 1997, their car also had, this was an Adrian Newey designed McLaren, by the way. Adrian Newey was at McLaren back then. He was at, who was he with originally? He was with March in '89. That's who Adrian Newey was with originally. And then he moved to Williams and took Williams to the 1992 championship with Mansell. Then he moved to McLaren and took McLaren to the 1998 championship with Hakkinen. And then he moved to, he was with McLaren for some time before then moving to Red Bull, where he's been for a very long time. Wherever he goes, championship winning cars follow, basically. This particular car, the 97 one, if I can get the pin to work, had what was called brake steer. What this was, and I do remember this, but I remembered it once I'd reminded myself about it when I was looking up about this video. And that was that there was a second brake pedal inside the car. This was actually spotted by a journalist taking photographs by the road, by the trackside, or a photographer basically. And even when in an accelerating zone on the track, the rear brakes were glowing as if the brakes were on, even though the car was accelerating. And what it was they had a second brake pedal inside the car that the driver could use just in order to counter any understeer or oversteer going through a corner. If you applied that brake, it would the brakes would apply on one of the two, or on either of the rear wheels, basically, just so that you could just do a little tweak, a little dab on the brake on either wheel, and it would just I think it was on the left side, actually. It might have been the left rear wheel. And that would just correct any sort of oversteer or understeer and that sort of thing. Which is extremely clever, of course. It must have been very difficult for the drivers to get used to. It didn't last very long, of course, because I think it was Ferrari complained about the legality of it. It was right on the edge of being legal. And I think by the end of the season, brake steer was gone. The idea of hitting that second brake pedal just to sort of change the steering of the car a little bit. That was gone by the end of the year. So what did they actually achieve? So throughout the 1997 season, they had, oh dear, okay, there we go, 7 podiums, 63 points. Back then, of course, it was 10 points for a win, 6 for second, 4, 3, 2, 1, down to 6th place. They had picked up 3 wins, and their wins were in Australia for Coulthard. That was the very first race of the season. I remember that race, but I know that Frentzen nearly won the race, but he had a brake problem, because that particular circuit is very tough on brakes. Melbourne, that was only the second race at Melbourne, 1997. Second time Melbourne had held Grand Prix. And we had Italy. That was another race win for Coulthard. And then the very last race, the European Grand Prix at Jerez. And that was Hakkinen's very first Grand Prix win. That was the race where Schumacher and Villeneuve were going for the title. And Schumacher was leading the championship going into that race by 1 point. And he drove across, going around the first corner, I think. He drove across into Villeneuve. Did he do it deliberately? Did he not do it deliberately? We don't really know. But he was booted out of the championship for it. Got to keep all his statistics, but he was officially removed from the championship, Michael Schumacher, which I think is ridiculous. That's a bit over the top. But anyway, it resulted not in the retirement of Villeneuve, even though supposedly Schumacher threw himself at Villeneuve. It actually resulted in the retirement of Schumacher. So Villeneuve was then able to go on and finish the race and score, I think he finished 4th, so he scored 3 points to win the championship. There was a bit of controversy insofar as apparently Ron Dennis and Patrick Head of Williams had come to an arrangement whereby if the McLarens stayed out of Villeneuve's way, if Villeneuve needed to go up 1 or 2 places in the running in order to secure the championship, the McLarens would let him do that without trying to fight him. But if Villeneuve was in a winning position and the McLarens were ahead of him, Villeneuve would let the McLarens finish ahead. I don't know if this conversation happened, but I remember it being treated at the time as if it definitely did happen. But anyway, Villeneuve did finish behind the McLarens, didn't challenge them at all. I forget who was 3rd in the race, but Villeneuve was 4th, I believe, and the McLarens were able to come home for their first 1-2 in ages, probably since the McLaren Senna days, the Senna Prost days. Oh, careful. And that provided Hakkinen with his first win. And the McLarens had won the first race. McLaren had won the first race of the year and the last race of the year. And it meant that they finished, well, if I just do the championship. Villeneuve had 81. Frentzen scored 42 because Schumacher was removed. I think he scored 79 points, but he was officially removed, as I said. There's Coulthard. He scored 36 points. Alesi also 36. Berger 27. Hakkinen 27. So Coulthard got the nod on Alesi in the championship because he had won 2 races, and Hakkinen was, even though he scored the same number of points as Berger, they had both won a race because Berger won the German Grand Prix. So obviously Berger must have had better aim. I think he had a 2nd place that Hakkinen didn't have a 2nd place at all during the season, I think. So looking at that, going into the 1998 season, you would have thought Coulthard is maybe the favourite for the championship because it looked like McLaren were going to be really, really good in 1998. And of course they did start fantastically well. in 1998. It looked like Coulthard was going to win the first race, and then there was an agreement, that's right. I'm skipping to 1998 here, aren't I, for some reason, but there was an agreement between the McLaren drivers that whoever led at the first corner would be allowed to win the race. And Hakkinen led at the first corner, so later in the race Coulthard handed the win over to Hakkinen, which I don't agree with that at all, but there you go. But this 97 McLaren Mercedes was the start of a few years, well, 2 years, certainly 98 and 99, where the McLaren dominated. But it was still very competitive, winning races for a number of years up until the middle noughties. Well, actually all the way up until, and then Hamilton took over, of course. So really McLaren were a race-winning, championship-challenging car all the way from 1998 up until and including 2008. Because when Hamilton defended his championship in 2009, he was nowhere near. He did win one race, I believe, that year in Hungary, but certainly wasn't a championship challenging car. But this was the start of it, the 1997 McLaren Mercedes MP4/12. Now, it had lots of retirements. It actually had 14 retirements out of, there were 17 races, so out of 34 starts, which is terrible. And in a number of those races, McLarens were leading. Coulthard would have undoubtedly won the Canadian Grand Prix had he not retired. And there were other races as well that McLaren would have won, or been very highly placed had they not retired, basically. So it was like a lot of these cars that are right on the edge, it was very unreliable. But by 1998, that reliability had been fixed. So this was this was them tweaking the car in 1997, getting it ready for their championship dominating 1998 season. If I was you, I would have a look at the car. Beautiful car. Really nice, especially the nose. I love the nose. So I may well draw that car soon. The nose of this McLaren MP4/12 is fantastic. Anyway, that's, I think, where I'm going to end this particular video. Next time, I think I'll look at a car I very much did not like the look of. And I've got an idea in my mind already as to what one I will pick for that one, because there's been a few shockers. Okay, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Please subscribe if you'd like to, or comment, or like the video. And hopefully I will see you on the very next video. Oh, I did mention that win in Jerez was Hakkinen's first Grand Prix, didn't I? First Grand Prix win. First Grand Prix win for Mika Hakkinen. Went on to win about 22 races, I think, and 2 World Championships. Anyway, thank you once again, and I'll see you next time.